I would say visual. So it's kind of hard to just make a blanket statement on the balance because you have to see who and what you're dealing with. That's why I deal so much with the temperament profile, because based on how you're wired, when you deal with the four temperaments, the sanguine, the choleric, the melancholy, and the phlegmatic, each one of those, two are introverts and two are extroverts. Based on how God wired you, because none of us wired ourselves, right? We are stuck with what we have on the inside. That's why we're responsible to really work out our working out. Like whatever you need to fix, you're responsible to work it out. So God wired you a certain way. So if you have a melancholy and you have a sanguine, both of them are going to behave and respond differently to shame, guilt, and empathy because of their wiring. That's why it's so important to understand yourself. Because if you understand yourself, then you won't feel so guilty. You can say, oh, God wired me like this, but it doesn't excuse me to misbehave. What it does is like now I got a finger on why I do what I do, which will free you and allow you to work on yourself. So the balance depends on the two people. There's no cookie cutter balance for this couple, this marriage. Individually, like we're going to talk about and what you're talking about tonight, we're accountable to our own self and our own behavior based on, again, the root system. So you have to take in control in thought, what did a person go through? And I know people are not going to take time to do this, but if you have a mate and you're with someone, then you two should be able to merge your lives together, understanding each other, so that if I misbehave a little bit, my partner can say, I know where that's coming from. That was a trigger. Let's talk about it. But when people don't know you, they will guess, or they'll figure it out, or they'll label you. I hope that gave you a little bit of insight of the balance with that.
It really, really, I'm sorry, Elaine. I just want to say, because it was a delay in going live. So I see people are coming on now. And what we're talking about this month for mental health, this week, this Monday, we are talking about shame and empathy and the effects that it has within a relationship. So I just had to clear that up and back it up because we weren't live. So now that we're live, I just wanted to catch everybody up. So take it away, Elaine.
All right. I love what you said, Pastor Sheila. And I had a question that I kind of wanted to talk about. Like, how do you learn to separate the action from the person? Because you said something earlier, which I really like. Because so many times we'll say, he did this or she did this. So, how do you separate in a relationship, the person from the action?
That's kind of difficult because when the action is done based on what the action is and how healed I am or the person is, what is it falling on? Is it falling on rough ground? Is it falling on partial healing ground? Or is it falling on someone who really can't hear what you're saying? Because if I'm a person and I do something to you, whether it's good or indifferent or not so kind, then how do I respond to you? I don't know. Is that what you're saying? Like the action and the person, if there's no understanding and no communication, if we're
Hmm.
talking about relationship here, if we're just going along just to go along, something you're going to hit a wall. You're going to definitely hit a wall to the real deal of what life has done to you or to your partner. And if you haven't been paying attention to the person you're sleeping with, that's how sometimes people can be with someone for a long time and wake up and say, I'm sleeping with the enemy.
Been
How's
there.
that? I'm sleeping with the enemy. How could you, and then you all, again, then what happens? Guilt moves in, guilt pops up because now you blame yourself because you didn't see this in this person. You should have recognized this, or maybe you did. You overlooked it because women will overlook something. And because we are women, we powerful. We think we can change the mind or change a person, even if it's a minute thing. Small things turn into monstrous things. And I think one of the
Hmm.
problem is we don't nip it in the bud when it happens because we don't want to hurt the person. We don't know how to express to the person. And again, if I don't know how you're wired and you don't know how I'm wired, it's a
Hmm.
guessing game through the whole relationship.
So I love that. I think with the question to my question about the person versus the action when you were
Mhm.
talking about the different personalities, right?
Yes.
Traits. So if
Yes.
I know that this is a part of my, melancholy versus the sanguine, so how do I separate or have a better understanding? I guess that
Okay.
was the
Okay. So I've counseled many couples, and they have come in with different. Are we okay? Because I don't know why we weren't live earlier.
We're
that.
fun. Yeah, it was weird. We're live
What
now.
what we missed the whole part, the whole 19 minutes. Okay, it's okay. You backtrack, so we'll just keep it moving. I'm following your
Hmm.
lead. So I have counseled couples, and like you, okay, you gave the example of a melancholy and a sanguine. They are two bookends, right? Totally different internally. What attracts a sanguine is the bubbly personality, the outgoingness, the hey, I'm here, let's have fun, da da da. And the melancholy is the laid back, kind of calm person, right? So now the melancholy is introvert. The sanguine is extrovert. That means these two people are so different, so very different, that if they don't understand, that's why I always give this profile to people that's getting married, people that are just dating, and they don't even have to have a counseling session, just long as they have this tool. And Coco can attest to the power of this profile. And so what happens is the two of them, I've had them come in and say, I want a divorce. I can't, because he did this. He took her to a Christmas party for 2 years in a row. And sanguines need people, and they need attention, and they need to hear that you love them a trillion times in one day. They never, it's like no one person can feed a sanguine's temperament. And in studies, it says only God can fill that need, because they need love and attention so much. The melancholy, on the other hand, like people, but don't need people. So this particular couple, he takes her to this Christmas party that she reluctantly goes to every year. And this is what they're telling me. And I'm like, okay, I'm with you. Keep going. She says, and I don't like it when he just takes me and sits me in a room and puts me at a table with people I don't know. And he becomes the social butterfly, and he's all over the room being Mr. Great. And I'm sitting there uncomfortable because I don't know these people. I want to go home. I don't need this many people. And he should be with me. But his need is people. Her need is not people. So they were saying, I wanted a divorce, because sanguines have their shoes at the door. If the homeboy's calling it's a basketball game, he could be helping her clean up on a Saturday morning and get a phone call and be like, yo, we at the court. Next, you know, she like, where you going? Where you going? He said, babe, I'll be back. I got a game. They got a game. And she's standing there. Or he's going out with the fellas and she's at home. And what happens then, she feels something's going on. He has another girl. Because you know how we think, when a man keeps going out, going out, going out, and you at home, they say, no, I was with the guys. No, you wasn't. Who is she? That's what we want to know. No, and it's no one. It's just his need, the action. His need is people. Her need is to sit home with her boo with some popcorn and a Netflix movie
and chill.
and chill.
And chill.
So the needs are different. Everything, the way that we're wired, are needs and wants. If you don't get it fed in a positive way, you will get it fed in a bad way. Yeah, because God wired us to have needs and wants, strengths and weaknesses. So this couple, I says, okay. So we do the tap test, we talk about it, and then I says, okay, let's compromise. This is where the compromise came and saved the marriage. I said, now you understand. He said, man, that's why she don't like to go out. I said, right, she's not wired like you. And she said, babe, you wasn't real. I told you I wasn't with no girls. I have to go out. It's not like a want. It's a need. It's a difference between a need and a want. And so I talked to them and I said, let's compromise. Let's just compromise. How about 2 weekends? You hang with her, and 2 weekends, no matter what he wants to do, you go with him. And they was like, oh, we could do that. I said, but y'all want a divorce, right? So now they walk away with tools that when the melancholy wakes up and don't want to hear voices because they're quiet in the morning, Sanguines wake up with WBLS blasting. They have the radio on, the TV on, and they on the phone. It's like constant voices. They need it. They need it. It drives Melancholy's nuts. But now he knows how she feels, and he knows how she feels. They're still happily married now. And they worked with the pattern of feeding each other what each other needs.
That's
Love it.
good. So let's, before we move on, we have some comments. The psalmist
Okay.
says that part.
Which part?
Kathy said, "Good evening, everyone."
Good evening.
Anae said, "Hey" to at Kathy. They're greeting one another.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
And Michael
We
said,
have
"We
a,
have a pro on here today." And the
yes, just
pro
for
is
you. Just for you.
Michael.
I'm teasing you, Mike, and you know it. So
Yeah.
Pastor Chris said, wow, that part. And before we move on, like I said, I really would recommend taking one. I have taken one when I was younger and as I got older, and it wasn't really too much of a difference, but it totally helps me understand myself because I'm a little bit of both,
You have a
but more
blend.
so a melic. I have a blend.
Hmm.
So that's why Lane be like, sometimes, go ahead, you good with that. And then I'm like, I don't feel like doing that. In the morning time, y'all know, don't call me. I won't talk to no. Shh.
So you're
I
total
can stay
opposite.
calm. I'm total opposites, but I do know when I'm in either or lane. But I prefer the melancholy. I know we can just stay home all day. I don't want to go outside. Sometimes I have to tell myself to go outside because I
Hmm.
will stay totally in the house. Let's see. You want to read this one?
Antoinette says, "I took the test and oh my, I'm it made perfect sense. I'm a blend too." Hmm.
Oh,
We all
somebody
are
laughing at me.
blends.
Correct.
We all are blends. Is it you might find a triple melancholy, but and that's deep. That's a person who's very, very deep, 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 deep in terms of internally and scripture wise. The prophets were melancholies, and Peter
Mhm.
was a sanguine, which you could tell. Peter wanted to cut ears off. He was the homeboy. He was the one with the mouth. So he was sanguine. So
I think
it's
Peter was from Harlem. No.
yeah.
Right. Peter from Harlem.
Yeah, so it's very important to understand yourself because then you give yourself a break. When you fall or
Oh
you
yeah.
don't do something right, or you feel like, oh, why did I do that again? Or how could I have done that? Or why did I pick the same kind of guy? I said I wasn't going to. But when you learn your temperament, you grow in it and you understand why you do what you do, and then you give yourself a break. Like, oh,
Hmm.
okay, I know. And then it helps you to work on that area, to live out of your strengths and work on your weaknesses because we all
Hmm.
have them. The same way we talked about real quick about the sanguine male, the sanguine female. I had one to come into the office who was very, very so scatterbrained and all over the place. But she was the last one out of 12 kids that her mom had. By that time, her mom was done with baby and babies. And so she was the one who needed it more than any of them, but she didn't get it. So what did she do? She went outside and got the attention. She got it whatever way that she could get it. She wound up doing a bid in jail. She wound up dealing with
Wow.
girls, dealing with men. I mean, she's married and
Wow.
everything now. But she was sanguine women are the type of women that walk in the club and say, yo, yo, I'm here, I'm here. But a lot of times people think that they just want to take all the suck up
Mm.
all the attention. But it's not that they want to suck up the attention. They need the attention.
Wow.
You
Wow.
understand? So we people will look at it and be like, oh, she a hoe, she this, or she that. No, she needs the attention. And when you teach a sanguine that, they forgive themselves and be like, oh, I wasn't loose. I wasn't, I needed this. So it's very
Hmm.
important to understand how you're wired.
That's
You want to
good.
read this before you
The
go on?
psalmist said, "Well, I guess I need the test. Laugh out loud. If we are all a blend, laugh out loud." Yeah, and I think to your point, when we talk about personality tests and things of
Mhm.
that nature, and when you understand who you are, then you understand. Then you don't think I'm weird or I'm just this way. No, it's the way that I'm wired. I've heard it said, and I've said it here before. It's like introverts, extroverts. When you understand introverts need to think to speak, while extroverts need to speak to think.
Good. That's good.
Mhm.
When you understand that, it's okay. Give the person the time needed to have to process if they're an introvert, because they need to think it through before they say something,
That's
versus
so good.
again, the extrovert who will
Yeah.
just keep talking and you're like saying, would you be quiet? No, they're actually just thinking out loud.
You see
Right.
what you see what Jesus told Peter on the mount. What did Jesus say to him? He was up there trying to give orders and say, do this. He said, get thee behind. What are you get thee behind me? What are you talking? Get out of here.
Just go and sit down somewhere.
All right. So let's talk about conflict avoidance. So
Let's go.
here is the shame. Shame may continue to be reluctant to address the issues or conflicts openly, as one may fear judgment or rejection from their partner. So that's the shame aspect of it. But empathy leads to conflict resolution. Empathetic communication is where partners are more inclined to listen, validate each other's feelings, and work towards mutual beneficial solutions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shame. Shame is a focus on self, and guilt is a focus
Mm.
on I did something wrong. And, in other words, we internalize. Shame is internalized, right? I did my notes.
Mhm.
Internalize negative beliefs. When the mind condemns our behavior, we feel guilt. When it condemns the person, we are we feel shame,
Mhm.
right? And so it triggers, sometimes triggers. What triggers shame? And how does it respond? How do we respond to it? Self criticizing. How many
Mhm.
times have we done that? Self critic, our flaws. Oh my. And when someone blows our floors up, or notice the vulnerable part that you ladies always talk about, that people try to hide in a relationship. They don't, women, men too, we try to hide those flaws because maybe that same flaw was what caused somebody to tease you, or to nag you. And in the last relationship, so if you're saying, I'm not going to say that again, because, the same thing will happen again. But again, this camouflaging only makes it worse. And so the shame, it contributes to reluctance. Shame is really a killer. It is really, really a killer. It can kill your life. It can kill your self-esteem. It can cause depression. Just for a couple of things with shame, it has the mental health issues with shame is terrible. It makes it difficult to open up or to be intimate. Being intimate requires the ability to be open, and shame doesn't allow you to be open. Shame takes the key and locks you down and throws the key in the river, right? Never to maybe find it again. Vulnerable, accepting any kind of words coming from your partner, right? It's something. Shame makes you want to hide. Like, I'm hot. And I know there are some of people in the chat, some people up in the in the bleachers, in the balcony, in the expensive seats. Listen, I know some of you and some of us and all that'll come later have dealt with some type of shame or guilt. If you live in and you're alive, there has to been something that you have dealt with that you had to fight to get through, depending on the magnitude of the shame, right? To become invisible. I know there was something I went through in my life and I wanted to be invisible. I wanted to disappear. I just went in a dark hole and no one knew it because of the way I'm wired. I'm a quiet person and I don't share because I was always the one fixing people. So there was no one to fix me or to help me. So I became invisible, which I had to fight my way out of that dark space because I felt guilt. I felt shame. And the body of people that was around me weren't helping. And that's important, your village. And you and Pache talk about the village all the time. It's okay when everything is going cool in the village, but when there's a
Mm.
breakdown, if there's a breakdown. So listen, in a relationship, it can be one of both partners, right? Going through it at the same time. What happens when you're in a relationship and both of you are
Wow.
going through shame and guilt at the same time? Who's going to drag each other? Who's going to do the work? When nothing
Wow.
changes, nothing changes. So the root cause may be past traumas, societal, listen, expectations, personal insecurities. That's a big one. The personal insecurities. People hide behind that all the time. Even cultural backgrounds. What about us as people of color? when we have to deal with so many different things and put shame on us all the time about our color. What about our sisters that bleach their skins, to get a lighter version of themselves? That's why I said this conversation is so awesome, because it affects so many different people and it manifests in different ways. So, as you were saying, shame may contribute to reluctance to address issues and conflicts open. So, if I'm all screwed up on the inside and I don't know who I am, how do I avoid conflict if I don't have the tools?
Right.
Yeah.
No.
And one thing I want to say, it's so funny talking about shame. And like you said, the thing about it is it's universal, right? We all have it. It's universal. You can't, but it causes us to retreat and make us feel like we're by ourselves. And we still know we know that we all have it and we all deal with it.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was
Yeah.
going to say, I think a part of it is that humiliation, right? And I mean, just thinking about for myself, and I've talked about this, getting divorced. For me, one part of it was, like I've said, all my uncles or aunts who married into the family were still my uncles and aunts that married into the family. All my brother-in-laws or sister-in-laws are still my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So here I was, the only one of my siblings saying, I'm getting a divorce. I'm like, well, how did they get it right? And I got it wrong. And I was supposed to be the one. And that humiliation. And then even realizing I'm not in a good space and place. But then the humility, like, I have these children and what is it going to look like? And that humiliation, because, what is my life going to look like afterwards? Because I'm going to go back to that fear of the unknown. And then watching my behavior, if we're talking about shame is also a behavior. So there was many and plenty of times that I sat, someplace, or we sat together knowing we were not getting along, but the behavior was, let's just mask
Push
up
through.
and
Yes.
push through, put on the show. And then as soon as we slam the door in the car, it's like, I can't.
Yes.
And literally, we should have been saying, and the Academy Award goes to.
Yes.
So I think that, like, hearing that, but then going back to what you said about having the village and having the empathy of someone being able to cover you.
Yes.
Sure enough to be able to handle or help you manage where you are, because as you said, we all go through it. But the thing about it is we're all going through it at a different time. So it's either we're in the storm, going through the storm, coming out of the storm, somewhere we in the storm cycle. And when you feel like, for myself, I felt like I did everything. I checked all the boxes. How did this go wrong? When I was doing wrong, everything felt like it was going right. So
Yes.
how is
Yes.
this happening?
Oh my goodness.
So I think that was very just powerful.
Because shame encourages a fight or flight behavior, right? And when you talk about the empath, people say, oh, I'm an empath, and it's a difference between being the empath. There's a difference between feeling empathy for others and being an actual empath. And that goes to what Pache was talking about. It is described as an empath as emotional sponges who are so sensitive, they tend to take on the stress of the world. That's when you were saying, how far do you go in giving empathy? How far do you put yourself out there before something shifts? So if you're struggling remember, we're talking about how you're wired, how you respond to see. Now a choleric is not going to go through this in the temperament. The choleric don't have time for no weakling. The choleric is like, get over it. The choleric can crush every other temperament because God wired them so strong. They're built leaders and their mouths are very strong and they don't have time to be wiping your tears. You could go on a trip. I could go on a trip. All three of us could go on a trip and come back, and the choleric has taken our company to the next level. They are so leader, and their mouth. They don't like weak people. So you see how the temperament, they have to work on how they deal with people. They really have to work on that because everyone is not wired like them. But one thing, like I said, strength and weaknesses. If you work with a choleric or a choleric trains you, and you wind up moving on to your next job, I guarantee you, when you get to that next stop, someone's going to say, "Who trained you? Who trained you?" Bravo to who trained you. Because choleric's going to have you going through life, making it to the next job and the next job. Maybe they may be hard, they may have the whip, but they're going to get you right. But at the same token, you got to understand this empathy and being an empath. And I love the fact of how you both are asking, like, how far is too far? When do I get off the train? Like, when do I pull excuse me, next
This is
stop.
my stop.
This is my stop. Or you can say, in New York where they do the train, they don't have my Metro card. I had no money on the Metro. I can't ride today. Can't ride. No, can't ride. So I know, Pache, you want to say something. So the gift, the empathy or empath, is your care deeply for others and want to help. Either way, they both want to help. It's just that all of us need to know boundaries because we are all wired differently. And if you don't understand, I just gave you a snapshot of the choleric, and being we talked about the melancholy, you got that. The sanguine, you got the phlegmatic is the chill one. The phlegmatic is the peacemaker. They chill. They be like, "Why y'all arguing? Let's get this together." Yeah, no. They deal with. They don't want to be in the front. Put them in the back. Don't mention their name. They don't need a spotlight. They just want peace. They are peacemakers. So each temperament, each one of us has a blend of a temperament. One is the stronger, one is the cold, and then you have the other two under. So if you're a born melancholy, you may have a 15 number in melancholy and say a 10 number in a sanguine. That means you got a blend. So you could be either or. But you got to understand yourself is my point in anything. I yield.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, because we have some comments in there, and I wanted to say the way to really strip shame and get to that empathy is what something we've been talking about since day one, which is vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be vulnerable enough to put yourself in that space and trust yourself and knowing, and again, knowing your boundaries. How far do I go? When
Mm-hmm.
do I reel back in? So I'm going to leave it there because I want to get to these comments.
Okay.
The psalmist said, "Shame is big and can cripple you in the worst way, especially in the body of Christ. Not all, but the best thing is that you need to look at shame in the eye, give it to God, and walk unapologetically." Amen. Definitely. The psalmist also said, "Let me be clear, my divorces," I hear his voice as I'm reading this.
Right.
And walking
do the hand movement.
and drop the mic. And walking in my call when I didn't feel worthy. It was a collective, but I had to get myself out of the hole and heal correctly. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that's good.
And
Thank
a
you.
part of it, I just say, it's being in it, as you stated earlier, being in that vulnerable place. And when sometimes you say nothing changes when nothing changes, but sometimes you just have to feel like, I've hit rock bottom. I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm coming out. Like you said, pushing your way out, fighting your way through, and knowing, for we're believers, just knowing that God got me, and whatever this is on the other side, it's going to be better. So it's having that hope, and just holding on to that hope, because sometimes you have nothing else but hope and faith. Like, I got nothing else.
It's true.
Everything else away from me, I got God and I trust him. My hope and my faith in him is what's going to carry me through. And again, speaking from my personal experience, it was that I didn't care about material things. I didn't care about, I was like, Lord, my peace. And I know you have it. and it's in you, and I have to walk in you and hear you and be able to say my shame, like I said, your test becomes your testimony. So the very thing that I was ashamed of, I ended up writing a book about it,
Yeah.
where I didn't even want to tell anybody. And now I'm like, if anybody wants to read it, I don't care.
Yeah,
And
that's
that is a place when you understand, am I healed? When you can
Yep.
tell your story and someone else
Yep.
cries, but you can help, you have empathy now on your own story to help someone
Oh,
else.
that's good.
And I
Yes.
think the other piece that I would say is someone has to be crucified for someone else to be saved.
Yes. You got to
Yeah.
crucify that. Identify it to crucify it.
Yeah.
And then
Yes,
even
yes, yes.
within that, telling our story, guess what? We just took all of our power back from shame.
There
Now
you
shame has
go.
no power over us. Now shame can't say, well, you did this and you did that. And remember when, you know what? I'm just going to tell my God doing story.
Yeah.
Now I
That's the
told my
healing
story. Now
process.
what? So that's the
Yeah.
healing process. Like now you just took back all your power,
Yeah. And
right?
it's what
So
Elaine
we're
said.
gonna,
Yeah, but Elaine was
mhm,
saying that you could take back your power because at some point, if you're a believer, you have to lean into the faith and the trust to know. And for me, I always remember the last thing he got me out of that I thought I was going to
oh,
make
come
it out
on.
of. I got to replay the tape. Like, I got to go back and be like, okay, wait a minute. It was a rougher one back a couple of years ago.
I
I just,
always say check his resume against yours. Check his resume and then come back and check yours. And you be like, okay, could
I
do
would
this.
I would say one of the songs that got me through was Ty Tribbett. If he did it before, he'll do it
Do it
again.
again.
Same God right now,
Yeah.
same God back then. And for
Yeah.
me, it had to be, something that I had to keep repeating. And it's like that repetition, like, nope.
Yes.
He said he'll never leave me or forsake me.
Yep.
Nope. He said, I am the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. And I had to keep, and if I didn't understand anything else, I understood when it says, hide thy word in thy heart.
Yes. And by you
Mhm.
repeating it, when you're repeating it and you're fighting, God knows you were in the battle before you got in the battle. But by you leaning into when that broken place, because people think depressions, there are all levels of depression. Depression, when you hit rock bottom, is a good place sometimes because you can't do nothing but go up. You can't do nothing but come back up. And when you're saying, I am this and I am that with tears or whatever, there's an exchange in the spirit realm. I know we talking deep, but listen, hey,
It's
there's an exchange in the spirit. That's music to God's ear because the activation of faith now is he's you got his attention even more so because he's know you're broken, but your testimony can't be said unless he proves it through his glory in
Mhm.
you. And so we have to
Mhm.
have that ability to try to push ourselves out by just crying and calling it those things that be not as though they were. So creating the opposite effect than shame, it can create a space where people can process their circumstances without shame, deliberate, what's the word?
liberate,
No,
liberate.
delib,
Oh,
deliberating,
oh,
the deliberating effects.
Debilitating.
Yes, yes. So
Debilitating.
that
Mhm.
shame, it can create a space. Empathy can create that space where you saying now, okay, enough is enough. Realize as a person's ability to understand and feel what they're going through, and don't do the fight or flight thing. It's work. So it's like, how bad do you want to change? How bad do you want to be whole? Each individual
Mhm.
person or each couple. Pache?
Okay, so that's good. So we have two more. So the next one is low self-esteem. So
Oh.
chronic shame can erode self-esteem, leading individuals to doubt their worthiness of love and acceptance from their partner.
Mhm.
Empathy provides a supportive environment. When partners are empathetic towards each other, they create a supportive environment where both feel valued, understood, and accepted.
Yeah, chronic shame. That means
Chronic.
perpetual. That means chronic. Chronic means I'm out of here. Chronic pain, chronic disease, chronic high blood. Chronic means it's perpetual. It's not some menial thing. It means it's a serious situation here. So chronic shame can erode self-esteem, most definitely. And so when in a relationship, you say leading individuals to doubt their worthiness. Well, we have to figure out what dilapidated the worthiness before they got with the partner. Now the partner can be the cushion and give the empathy and give the understanding. That's a wonderful thing if you could land with someone who can understand that you've been, going through something, you have low self-esteem and low self-worth, right? And a lot of times it takes a lot of energy from a person to really get their partner to understand, that you are worthy, that happened 8 years ago, that happened 15 years ago. And they love that. See, love never fails. And so a person will ride out with you and understand. And you saying low self-esteem, chronic, leading individual, empathy. Here's the word that'll help, right? It's the, what do you call that? What did I call it? The Superman stuff? The crypto. Yeah, the kryptonite. Empathy provides a supportive environment where both feel valued and understood and accepted. But even in that, you got to get to a certain place to even accept the empathy. If you wallowing around in low self-esteem and low self-worth, sometimes the partner can give that cushion, but should direct them to a counselor or a therapist because they need a deeper type of conversation. And the partner may be not qualified or had a capacity to deal with a person who's been wounded and they have no self-esteem and no self, because your partner always always a good partner will see your worth, your good worth. But before you got to that partner, it was some work done to you. And so the partner will be what? Then the partner becomes codependent and trying to fix you. So shame triggers codependency in relationships because now you become the savior. And where's the boundary? So we have to know when to hold them and fold them and say, I'll walk with you to a counselor. I'll go with you. And then that's empathetic as well. That's empathy. If you're trying to help, you can't be the savior, but you can be the cushion and that soft voice and that soft place for someone to land on to get them to get more help. Because low self-esteem and self-worth will tear up a relationship.
Yeah. And that's good. And I think what I'm hearing, and a part of that is your partner or whomever you're dealing with, even in friendships, should be non-judgmental. Accept you for who you are. Don't judge you for what you've done, or just accept you for who you are. But then, okay, I'm not the person, but I can take you to this place because I've done it before. I'm not judging you, but I'm not a professional. You need to seek help. I can be here to support you, but as far as what you need, and I've done that even in coaching, you sit there and you listen to people and it's like, hey, I can coach you, but you need a counselor. I even refer someone to you after sitting and having a consultation. I'm like, you need a counselor.
He sure
you don't
did.
need a coach. Like,
yeah,
I can't help you. Didn't judge the person, but just knew that person was beyond coaching. They needed therapy before they got to the coaching.
That chronic, because you said chronic, that's what I spoke from, chronic shame.
Yeah.
Not if that word chronic wasn't there and just shame was there, we would talk about what we talked about, but it'd be a little lighter. But once you put the chronic in it, like the person you referred to me was chronically ill. And so I love when professionals know how to refer out. I've had many, many cases that I've referred to psychiatrists because I knew as an assessment that they needed more help, that there was an imbalance in their head, and they had different axes, they had different diagnoses that was beyond. I can't write a prescription, and some things you just don't pray away. Okay, let's drop it. Wait a minute, hold it. Some things prayer works, but some things you can't, and everything is not a demon, right? Some people have an imbalance in their brain, and you want to see behavior change, and you want to see the person have a healthy life, right? You want to see a person live healthy and not going through all these mental things. Sometimes meds are given to a person for a few months, and they're good. They just need to be balanced out. So we, even in the church, it bothered me years ago when I would see all these different people, and we have the nerve to go outreach to homeless, and nobody in the church have anything to do with mental health and mental illness, and everything a demon. And then every is a demon. I said, come, what are y'all? Wait a minute. Everything is not a demon. And then you're going to go bring the folk from the street in the church and label them now. and you don't have a clue, and everybody's circling around, sha ba 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 ba, right? Everybody trying to pray stuff, lay hands and stuff. It's not working, right? So it got to the point I had to talk to the people. I was like, wait, we need to talk to the pastor because this is not working. I said, anybody ever took an evangelistical course, how you outreach people? Can you recognize schizophrenia? Can you recognize multiple personality? Can you just even recognize it? No, they demons. No, they're not. So we have to understand. There are people. You want to read that?
The psalmist says, you all are kicking the pot straight off the stove. Let's go, ladies.
You know, even in a relationship.
Preach,
amen. Amen. Even in a relationship, we all are in the DMS. It's not 4 now. They done gave it a whole nother. No, what is it? 6 or whatever. It's
the numbers have gone up.
Because they done put more stuff in there to label what they say we are. My God, not that.
Not the Shondo. The Shondo.
But wait.
Not the Shondo.
Michael said amen.
We are all in that book. We all have a diagnosis. Hello, bulletin. We all have diagnosis. We are in that book, right? So that's why you can't say somebody is mentally ill anymore. It's against the law. They changed it. You cannot use those words to label people. So when you see these things, you could be with a partner and you could see certain behavior that you never seen before, and you try to deal with it, but they need a little bit more help. Don't try to be the doctor. Just love the person enough to have the empathy enough to say, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
You know, get in that space where anybody will receive from you when they come from a place of love. Because love doesn't hurt. Love says, I care about you. Love says, and then you know what? It'll wind up where someone say, you know, when I was younger, they wanted to put me on meds and I didn't want to take. Now you're finding more about this person you sleeping with. They wanted to put me on meds and I had them, but I didn't like the way they made me feel. But they told me I needed them and I didn't. So now you see the decompensation of a person who at one point needed something to help, and they faked it all this time. But you're going to run in a wall, whether it's a mental health issue or the shame issue or the guilt issue, because we know there's toxic guilt attached to shame. How about that one? How about the guilt? And you got to get to the guilt before you even get to the empathy. Some people struggle with guilt, but they are mental illnesses caused by shame. Toxic guilt refers to an intense and a persistent, listen to me, a persistent feeling of guilt that disproportionates to the situation on one's. That means this is perpetual. Toxic guilt. I can't. Look what happened. Oh my God. The anxiety, the coda. It's chronic and it's toxic. Toxic guilt is deep. It's not just guilt. It's someone who, no matter what you say to them, they rather land on, no, I'm bad. Nope, I'm full of shame. Nope, I don't care what you say. I'll never be right. This is wrong. You know, and so you got to be careful to be able to identify what a person is dealing with. You know, we all know our own weaknesses. Like I told you, we have strengths and weaknesses. When you understand your weaknesses, you allow God to create them to be strengths. If we deny our weaknesses, it will choke the life out of us. Because if you don't identify it, you can't crucify it. And if you faking it, you're going to run into a wall. So I had to, Sheila, Ingram, take the LP, all of that, pastor, put it over there, me. I had to deal with me as a person. No title, just Sheila, the little girl, Sheila, the historical backtrack of the root system. Sheila, the one that became a widow, her father, when her husband was murdered the day this beautiful baby was born. Sheila, who was 15, had a little. I had to backtrack, not having a father. I had to backtrack those missing. Yes, I'm smart. Yes, I'm this. Yes, but no, in the inside, pieces were missing. The puzzle had, you know, you do a puzzle, you be looking under the bed for the piece, can't find it. Like, where's that piece? Can't find that piece. I had a few scattered pieces. I looked in the refrigerator for the piece. Where's the piece? I need the piece. I want to understand me. I want to understand me. And until I did the work and face me, that's how I could stand here and sit here and talk to other people. right? Because there's no shame in my game at all because I won. I defeated the foe. I rose above it. I got through it. And that's how we have to be interested in ourselves enough. You know, I had to say, self, I'm sorry. Self, I'm so sorry. Self, I
Mm-hmm.
did that to you. I allowed that person to come in your life. Self, I should have never let him in. I saw the red signs, Lord. I saw it, but I let him in anyway. Oh, I let another one and he wasn't right. Self, I'm so sorry. You got to find out why you do what you do over and over again and
Mm-hmm.
get some answers. I dropped the mic.
That was good. Anae says, love is so powerful. Absolutely. Love covers.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy says, so many people are hurt and misunderstood.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So now we can move on. If there's no other comments, Elaine is up next.
Well, I wanted, before I ask the next question, it just made me think of something that I often say. To your point, we spend our adult lives trying to work out our childhood issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when we backtrack, as you just stated, Pastor Sheila, as
Mm-hmm.
adults, we then can say, since it's all women, this is where the little girl was hurt, or this is where
Mm.
the little girl, the teenage girl, felt this way, or this is where she
Yes.
maybe ostracized for being different, or maybe this is where, and when we can work on and figure that piece of us out, then that is the road to healing,
Oh,
right?
yes.
We think of the one thing that we didn't like as a child, I can guarantee you it's the one thing as an adult you have worked really hard to make sure it never happens
Wow.
again.
Wow. Yeah. That's good.
And
That is
so
so good.
the psalmist says, mic drop, Pastor Sheila, let's go. Michael said, most people don't think anything is wrong with themselves. It's the other person. Then when you say something, you're judging them. Right. And
True.
I think also, if I, to Michael's point, a part of it is the how, you know, how are we talking to the person? With loving kindness have I drawn thee. Are we saying it? Because it's not what we say, it's the how.
How we say it.
And how are we delivering whatever it is that we're delivering? Is it in an angry moment? Because that's usually when we speak our truth, right? We've been
Yeah.
holding it. Now you got on my nerves. Oh, let's go. Now the gloves are off. And although you are absolutely right, you're absolutely wrong,
Yeah. Oh.
because you did it to
Yeah.
damage, not to heal. So I'm going to tell you about yourself, because I've done it. I'm like, oh, and anybody who knows me, if I start out with, first of all, then we know it's about to go straight downhill. And I'm gonna have to repent. All right. So we try not to do that. All right. So I don't know if we want to go. Michael said no. I said, all right. So the next one is about intimacy issues. Shame. Shame can hinder intimacy and vulnerability within a relationship, as individuals may struggle to let down their guard and truly be authentic with their partner, where empathy provides increased understanding. Empathy fosters a deeper understanding of each other's experiences, emotions, and perspectives, leading to greater intimacy and connection.
I think this is such a great lineup the way that you ladies did this because we took a journey. We took a journey to this space now, and shame can hinder intimacy and vulnerability within the relationship as individuals may struggle to let their guards down. And I think as you just built the blocks of how we can receive love, right? This has given a lot of tools to people who will see this and people who are here now. And intimacy is huge because for a female, intimacy is like I used to say all the time, I remember I went through something being, I'll put one out there on myself, right? It's the difference when someone takes advantage of you and with your clothes on, right? You're intimate or whatever. But when your clothes are off, you're exposed. That's an intimate place. You'll never get that back. You feel violated because that's the ultimate of intimacy that was taken from you if it turned out wrong, right? And so that can scar a woman in many ways, a man too, I would assume. But intimacy is such a touchy situation, again, based on your internal temperament. Now, a sanguine will recover from something easier than a melancholy and a phlegmatic, right? A phlegmatic and a melancholy will replay the tape forever in color. In color, they see it like they watching a movie. Why are you laughing?
Because it's true.
They will replay the tape like a whole Netflix movie. And it's difficult for them to move out of that headspace and get healed because of the internal deepness that they are as an individual, because they are like if you think about, for instance, like in a church, you figure who's in the pulpit? The sanguine. Because the sanguine has the people, the attention, and they preaching, and they got the attention, and yeah, hallelujah. Their temperament is being met. The melancholy is the one at altar call, giving the tissue, hugging on people, giving the shirt off their back. They're feeding their temperament by giving of themselves, which causes them to be more type of person to be hurt because they give too much too soon. Right? So intimacy, I can't answer that as a blanket statement. I can answer it because as we're talking, I'm sure people in the chat are saying, oh, I think I'm a this. Oh, I think I'm a melancholy. Oh, wait, that sounds like me. Yeah, some of this sounds like you, right? And so the intimacy, I just want to reiterate what you said before you guys stir the pot. Intimacy and vulnerability with the relationship, as individuals may struggle to let down their guard and be truly authentic. I'm telling you, out of all of the temperaments, the melancholy will struggle with this more than anybody. The choleric, they so hardcore, they could do it, they could feel it. They so focused on becoming a leader and owning companies. they so focused on the assignment and helping people grow, right? Not that they're not compassionate, because remember, it's strength and weaknesses, needs and wants. So that's all. Each temperament has their own. There's no good or no bad. The phlegmatic is just chilled, and you're gonna have to put some fire up under them because they don't really need anything other than just help you get along. So the intimacy, as individuals struggle to let down, how do we let our guard down? If you haven't been empathetic with me, and I have shame inside of me, and I haven't shared with my partner the shame, I probably told my partner 2 of the shame things I went through, but there's like 5.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on your life, depending on what you walk through. Some things you got to walk out in shoe leather, right? Some things people can hang with you and hold your hand. But when you got to walk it out in shoe leather, like I had to do a few times, you're on your own to get through to the other side. So who knows all the things that I had to go through to get to the other side? I get in a relationship and I tell somebody one thing or 2 things, but I don't want to say the other 2 or 3 because I don't think they'll think I'm good enough for them, right? Or so women have a lot of different things they've gone through. Some people say, oh, don't tell the partner nothing. He don't need to know. Women say, just tell him 1 or 2 things. They don't need to know everything. But then you get way into the relationship and then your partner said, you lied to me. You didn't even tell me you went through. So how much do you tell? Being intimate. Intimate is not touchy-feely. Intimate is exposing myself to somebody. That's the ultimate intimate. The laying in the bed and stuff, you could get up, wash up, and go about your business. But when you became naked emotionally with somebody,
right, that's the hard part.
when you addressed me of my emotions and got me to a point, listen, how do I get that back? And then you walk out on me, or that's a lot. That's a lot to carry.
That's probably when they get to you broke the windows out my car.
Right. Or burn the clothes or something.
The Gaffey place said, good point.
Yes. Intimacy is not just one thing. Intimacy is being exposed emotionally to the point that I can be vulnerable, that I can tell you my dark, deep secrets. But guess what? There has to be some level of trust built. There has to be, you have to earn the trust. You got to earn where Sheila could speak, where Pache or Dr. Elaine can speak. You have to earn it. And it's not like the man got to work for it. I'll know when he arrives there with me.
I like that. That's great. The psalmist says, wow, you're dropping bombs, Pastor Sheila. My God, forget the Shondo. Introducing Sheila. Okay, I'm done. That was the mic drop. So instead of, we're not saying Shondo, Sheila.
No Shondo. So you got your own Sheila when you start. So what we're going to do now, as you know, we always have a clip. We're going to play a clip, and it speaks to what we're talking about, shame and empathy for women and men. And then, of course, we will drop the link.
You're not good enough. The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt. Shame is a focus on self. Guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is the gremlin who says, you're not good enough. The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt. Shame is a focus on self. Guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is highly, highly correlated with addiction, depression, violence, aggression, bullying, suicide, eating disorders. Shame for women is this web of unattainable, conflicting, competing expectations about who we're supposed to be. For men, shame is not a bunch of competing, conflicting expectations. Shame is one. Do not be perceived as what? Weak. How many of you, honestly, when you're thinking about doing something vulnerable or saying something vulnerable, think, God, vulnerability is weakness. This is weakness. How many of you think of vulnerability and weakness synonymously? The majority of people. And that myth is profoundly dangerous. Vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. If we're going to find our way back to each other, vulnerability is going to be that path.
Powerful. Let me drop this real quick. Okay. That's powerful.
The Gaffey Place said, this is an incredible talk regarding shame. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have some questions. We can drop the link if y'all want to jump on. We got 2 minutes for questions. 2 minutes. And while we're waiting for that, here's a question for Pastor Sheila. How do you counsel individuals to cope with feelings of shame or inadequacies?
How do I counsel individuals who are dealing to cope with shame,
feelings of shame or inadequacy?
Well, it's pretty much related. The inadequacy, shame creates inadequacy, or inadequacy, it could be a double-edged sword where you come in with inadequacies because of shame. It really depends on the history of what that question is asking me, because being inadequate means I'm not good enough, I can't survive, I'm not smart enough, I can't do it. Inadequate, I'm not good enough for you. And shame is attached to all of these things. It's just shame is a killer. Shame will just take you out emotionally, mentally, physically. And I thank you ladies so much for, dedicating this month to your platform for mental health, because mental health is such a vast topic, such as that question, like, how do I navigate? What's the difference? Sometimes there is no difference. It's layers, or it's intertwined into one. And when I get people based on their temperament, I'm telling you, I would not push this temperament profile to you if I will swear on it. And all my children can tell you, I have hundreds of people have done this in this country and abroad. And all it can do is give you answers about yourself, why I do what I do when I do it. And then you give yourself the chance and the opportunity to give yourself grace for what you may call being a failure. You are no failure. People come all the time when they leave me, whether it's through Zoom or FaceTime, whatever. The one thing I make them say is don't ever say to me, what's wrong with me again? There is nothing wrong with you. You just don't understand how to navigate through your life based on what you've lived and how God wired you. You are a temperament with a blend. If you understand your needs and your wants and your strengths and your weaknesses and stop allowing people to violate you and you stop violating yourself, you'll have such a better life and understanding how to get whole without a counselor, without a therapist, because you'll be able to assess, say, uh-oh, I'm in my feelings. Let me work on that. Many times I've done for children, they bring their children in and then the kids go home and say, well, Miss Sheila said that I do that because I be like, The kids be playing on their parents. I said, do not allow them to say because I taught them how they're wired, that gives them a pass to act a certain way. No, it's for them to identify it so they can stop doing it. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes. And the link is here for anybody that wants to jump on. So the next question would be, how can individuals identify ways in which shame might be impacting their relationship or their ability to connect with others?
Behaviors. What is their behavior like? If we are to talk about a believer, how's your fruit? Did you check? You got a fruit check? You got to do a fruit check. If you're a believer, believers know what a fruit check is. You can't skip over the fruits. But if you're not a believer, what kind of behavior are you exemplifying? What are you doing inside and outside? Because basically, people will see you for who you are. You can't hide it but for so long. Anyone that's authentic can ID something that's not authentic, right?
Mhm.
It'll be like, something ain't right. You'll be like one of them looks. Y'all call it the side eye. Like something's not right. What's the B part of that question?
The B part is, okay, how can individuals identify ways in which shame might be impacting their relationship? So you said check the fruit. Then it says, or their ability to connect with others.
Well, I mean, if you're working from a dysfunctional space, your connecting with people is going to be a little off, and not unless you're dealing with off people, because those kind of spirits connect as well. If you're working from a dysfunctional space, your connecting with people is going to be okay. So
You want to
yeah,
read that? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
no,
finished.
yeah. Go ahead, Elaine. Dr. Elaine.
The Gaffey place says shame is probably one of the most overlooked feelings that men go through. It is rarely addressed when discussing men's mental health. Thank you. Great point.
That's good. And at the
that is-
Gaffey place, I wonder if he identified with what she said at the end of the video about men being weak.
Can you play that one more time? That was so powerful. Can you just play
Okay.
that one more time? You got to take it to the front.
Did it?
Okay, there you go.
Shame is the gremlin who says, you're not good enough. The thing to understand about shame is it's not guilt. Shame is a focus on self. Guilt is a focus on behavior. Shame is I am bad. Guilt is I did something bad. Shame is highly, highly correlated with addiction, depression, violence, aggression, bullying, suicide, eating disorders. Shame for women is this web of unattainable, conflicting, competing expectations about who we're supposed to be. For men, shame is not a bunch of competing, conflicting expectations. Shame is one. Do not be perceived as what? Weak. How many of you, honestly, when you're thinking about doing something vulnerable or saying something vulnerable, think, God, vulnerability is weakness, this is weakness? How many of you think of vulnerability and weakness synonymously? The majority of people. And that myth is profoundly dangerous. Vulnerability is our most accurate measurement of courage. If we're going to find our way back to each other, vulnerability is going to be that path.
That is so powerful.
Whoa.
That's so powerful. That I mean, and since you guys have been on the platform, that's been one of the main things you talk about is vulnerability. And isn't it amazing that you have to take such a long journey to get to that place called there, vulnerability? It's like
Yes.
this long, we got to just chip away blocks, chip away stuff that you've ignored or you just overlooked or just been damaged with. Just it's just amazing.
Pastor Chris.
Oh Lord,
Hi,
Jesus.
Pastor Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Hi,
I've been.
Pastor.
Hey, Pat Steelers on Harlem Girls. Oh, okay. Y'all been dropping bombs. Look, I mean, I don't really got too much to say unless there's a question. Because I mean, I mean, wow. You guys are just, man. My Shondo's all off right now. I got she la 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 right now.
So the question I would ask you, catch the glory, catch the glory.
Yeah,
So the
I caught it.
question I would ask, okay, is what she spoke to towards the end about men feeling weak and shame. Have you
Mhm.
ever felt that?
Yes, multiple times. See, I can say it because I've been through it. So between the accident being all torn apart, put back together like RoboCop, all this stuff between my divorces, between my son's death, all this stuff, man. Like I was just wide open. And guess what? Yeah, you don't want to be weak, and especially in the kingdom, right? Because they tell you, especially if you have a title, you have to be strong. You have to pray it away. It's all right. God's got you. Hold on to God's unchanging. Oh, see, I can go on and on. We got the scriptures for it. We got the prescription for the medicine. But see, the problem is if you don't process the pain, you don't process your weakness, you don't process that, man, I'm ashamed. And yeah, y'all talking about body and all that stuff. Well, look, listen, most guys ain't gonna admit it. But when you come from an athletic build and then now you rocking dad bod status, I'm sorry. Look, I'm just going to keep it real. And then on top of that, you lose your hair. Really? So again, all these things come into play, but we don't want to talk about that on the men aspect. So that's why we hold on to all these things. And if a woman projects something that she does not like she likes the men that has the little fade line, really don't have no hair, but they got the little outline going on with the little peach fuzz going around. And then you feeling some kind of way, and like, oh man, I ain't got nothing up top. You know, I got the George Jefferson on the side if I let it grow back, but that's back in the 60s, 70s. They ain't gonna rock today. I'm just saying. But anyway, let me stop. But yeah, vulnerability for men is a big thing. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, especially men of God, all those things. So it's nice to have professionals that you can talk to, because I had to talk to one. I'm sorry. Yes, Jesus got me. Yes, Jesus held on to me. Yes, Jesus made sure my mind ain't go straight flip, turned upside down. Yeah, he did. But I needed to talk to somebody that was professional to deal with the outburst, to deal with the rage, to deal with these people don't, all this stuff. Instead of snapping on folk when somebody come at you, I learned how to process all the reactive because my emotions were still out there. So I hope I answered your question.
Can I add to
Pastor Sheila, you want to talk to Chris and
No, I like that he's done the work. I like the fact that he's vulnerable in sharing because he frees other people by sharing. That's a very big level of knowing that your shame has died. It no longer has you bound, right? But here's a question, and it just popped up in my head, and only you probably could answer. Does a man, like as you're speaking, does vulnerability and ego clash? Does ego hold you hostage from being vulnerable? Do you have to pass through that, or as a man? Because
Yeah.
women don't have that type of barrier, but a man represents strength. A man represents leadership. A man represent my king, my lion. So does ego conflict with vulnerability? And if it does, is that another layer you have to fight through? Because that's that nakedness again.
Yeah. because I think ego with a slash of pride.
Mm.
Because some men are very prideful inherently, especially if we've been taught to always stay strong. Don't show weakness. Don't cry. Just all these things we're told as boys. Now, some of us may not have had both parents in the house. We got the streets that raised some of us. So, of course, we ain't going to be in the streets saying, oh, please don't shoot. We ain't going to be doing that. I'm sorry. We're going to be being all hard and be like, ah, man, pop them. You know, even though in the back of your mind, like, what in the world is going on? But you can't show emotion. So as you grow up and you're having relationships, you're dealing with different caliber of women, you're women that are challenging not only your psychic, but also motivating you in your natural space, spiritual space, all these things that are going on as you grow as a man, and there's holes. So how do you fill the holes? Ego and pride. So when the ego and pride is checked by somebody, look, bro, I see you got the tools, bro. You got it. But you got to put that ego and that pride down just a little bit, because I see there's some holes there. And I'm just trying to help you, bro. I ain't trying to make you feel some kind of way and all this. It's all about presentation and communication.
Yeah.
Because I always say this all the time on the show. You can't be coming at me with some quietism, because I'm gonna shut you off. All that stuff, all that extra stuff, I'm not gonna listen to you. But if you know how to articulate it,
the deliverance. Good. The deliverance is good. And one more thing I thought about before I passed the mic back to these wonderful ladies. I thought about, how did I get on the, hold on. There we go. How did one of the things I thought about when you talked about the accident and how your whole life changed, not emotionally but physically. You had to heal. I assume you had to go to physical therapy. I assumed that you weren't the same person, and in laying there mentally, not knowing if you were going to be the way you were before. And while you was talking about that, and we're talking about being vulnerable in relationships, I, I automatically thought about myself. Like when I got hit by the car walking across the street and my tibia was crushed. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with Coco, with Pache, when I was crossing the street and the cab ran the light and ran into me. And the recovery was so long, the process, the surgeries on my leg. And then after being healed, I have this tremendous, one thing we take pride in our family, the Jacksons always had nice legs. We always had nice legs. And after my leg laying there, I was really messed up. I was on oxycodone for 3-4 times a day for a long time. I didn't know if I was going to walk again. I didn't know if I was going to look the same way. I didn't think that I would be attractive. So as you were saying that, when people who, and somebody might be out there who have gone through some type of accident or something that changed them in some kind of physical way, that too messes with you when you're going into a relationship. So for me, I always thought like, well, ain't nobody, oh man, my leg, the scar, should I cover it? It's a mental thing, because now I've shifted, I've changed and the way I was. And so when you said that, even to this day, like I'll look at one leg is bigger than the other because of all the surgeries. Even though I'm walking without a cane and walking, I've moved to that. That scar reminds me that altered me in my woman, as I am as a female. And so I thought about you when you said that. People don't understand. It's very mental when you go through something traumatic like that. Physically, it changes you and it causes a certain kind of shame in your physique. It's like, oh, I can't show my leg. Yes, go ahead, Pache.
And even within that, the shame that when you have mental health challenges or you have health issues within your body,
Yes.
meeting a partner, how do I say,
Yes.
I can't go to the gym? How do I say, you know what? Every now and then this right hip gonna click, this left toe gonna get swollen, and this right arm gonna go out. how do you tell somebody that? You don't
Right.
want to go and, meeting somebody, but you have to lay it out on the table. How else would you know if that person is for you? But I think it all mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah,
It
that was
takes
good how
so
that,
much shame
yeah. Yeah.
because for me, dealing with certain health ailments, and I
Yes.
tell everybody, I had to process it mental first. No, you
Right.
can no longer do that. No, you can't do that anymore. And it's like, I'm used to going to the gym. I'm used to bench pressing and doing all of this.
And boxing
But
and everything.
boxing and kickboxing, I can't kickbox now. I gotta tip it. I can't do that kick. I got like tip it with the shin. So it's all mental though, and it has a effect on
True.
your mental health. And it brings a certain amount of shame because when you go in for the consultation, first thing they're gonna say, tell me your health history.
Right.
Oh, okay. So I can't do this. I know how to moderate and do that. I
Yes.
can't do that because I have that. And I can't do this because I have that. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah, so shame and empathy
So that
does
was
have
good how
a
that
profound
spent.
effect on mental health.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
You want to read that, Elaine?
Lady Dawn B said, if you can't be upfront and honest from day one, then they are likely not the person for you because something is keeping you from sharing your reality honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's that point when you were saying that you will know.
You will
So
know.
Landon said, facts. Yeah, I've been there. I was told prior to an accident, I was fearless. Now I'm thinking too long, uneasy.
Easy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that whole mental health, it varies in so many different ways. And this is what we will be talking about this month.
Yeah.
Mental health.
Yes. Yes.
Different facets.
I think it's
Yeah,
awesome.
I can definitely, if I may, I can definitely co-sign on what Pastor Sheila said. From a man's perspective, especially if you're one of those dudes that was always slim and trim and all that stuff, and then something that traumatic alters your whole life, yeah, it does mess you up here. Especially if you've been an athlete, now you're crippled. Like what?
Absolutely.
And it messes with you. And then, I had to get like 20 something surgeries. Now,
Wow.
it's only God that if you saw me, you were like, wait a minute, you've been in an accident?
Mm-hmm.
As he has said, it's the grace of God. It ain't me.
Yes.
Do I have to still do my things as far as make sure I take my medication,
Yeah.
make sure I go to my appointments, make sure, my devices are all configured and calibrated. And yeah, I got a long story with that. That's going to take at least an hour. But it freaks people out because, again, it's like I have technology and I'm also dealing with something that is experimentative, which is causing all these things that happen. Now, knowing who I am, my body is strong enough to adapt and start to become, back to what, well, Chris can't run no more. No, Chris can't play football no more. No, he can't dunk no more, but I can scoot. I can't run. I can't bust a run like I used to, but I can scoot a little bit. I could probably beat a 7-year. No, but again, that's progress because I couldn't do that before. I was doing a little walker run, like, yeah. But see, it does mess with you here. It does.
Yes.
And when you take your clothes off, especially when you're meeting a lady, I have to be 120% because as soon as I take my clothes off, Frankenstein the remix is coming to your station. So I got to be real with you that, hey, if you ain't into the scars and you ain't into all that stuff and you might get freaked out of what you see, I got to warn you ahead of time because sorry, it just ain't there. So again, that's a facet of stuff. So when you get smashed by a woman, they're like, oh my God, you look like Frankenstein. Oh my God, you look like Terminator. All this stuff that people say.
Wow.
Yes.
I've heard it.
Yes.
So you got to take all that And you got to try to, okay, all right, you know what? This is my reality. This is my truth. They're immature. I can't take this all in and make my mental fried or make
Right.
my heart feel some kind of way because you ignorant. Sorry,
Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah.
So that's how you heal. You got to take
Yeah.
that and throw it back at people because
Yeah.
if you allow that to fester, it will cripple you. You will be in
Absolutely.
a dark room, in a chair,
Absolutely.
rocking back and forth, not knowing what's going on from 1 minute to the
Absolutely.
next. Just saying.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Absolutely.
let me shut up because
Absolutely.
my testimony is like 2 hours
So
long.
No,
we thank
absolutely.
you, but Mike has been trying to get on. Hey, Mike,
Hi, Mike.
how you doing,
Good
Mike?
Lord.
What's going on?
So
Can you hear
I
me?
commend you,
nothing much. We
Wait
can
one
hear you.
second. 1 second. Just let me, 1 second. Let me just commend Pastor Chris for the work that he's done, the acceptance of your life being shifted, the acceptance that you're still the same person in your heart and on the inside, although you may look a little different. But that's not what makes you who you are. It's the heart. It's the matter of the heart. You have caught up with the accident. You have caught up with the trauma. You have caught up with whatever way it shifted your body. So I commend you for working on you to the point that you could get up here, talk, expose what you've just exposed, and still are just moving and living your life, and it hasn't crippled you to take your life. I just want to commend you for being that way. I'm sorry, Pache.
Okay, so we were saying to Mike, welcome, Mike. He's been trying to get on for a minute. Is there something you would like to ask the counselor, Mike, or you have a comment?
Yeah,
Because this professional, we got professionals now.
I have a comment. You can hear me, right?
Hmm.
Okay. I like to say to the Pastor Sheila that you're great. You're on point. I co-sign everything that you said. I
Thank you,
have
sir.
no real conflicting views of what you said. Um,
Thank you, sir.
um, Pastor Chris, same with you. I never have any real conflicting views. I think the platform tonight is very enlightening, um, very on point, very professional, and very informative.
Amen.
We
Thank you,
thank you.
sir. I appreciate
However,
that.
We thank
However,
you, Mike. You know we had to let you speak. So,
he has a however.
oh, go. However,
one of the things, and I mean, I was on and off because I was trying to get on. One of the things you was speaking of was the vulnerability piece, and men, I'm always an advocate of when a man, when the narrative a man is weak if he's not able to display vulnerability. Okay. Um, and I can see how it is seen as a weakness. And I understand that men have to be vulnerable in order to be able to move forward. And you really brought that home for me today. Not that Pache and Dr. Elaine hasn't brought it home for me before, but
Mhm.
maybe I was a little stubborn on the point in the past. Not to say that I've changed my views totally.
Mhm.
However, and Pastor Chris, you touched upon it also that men have to show some type of vulnerability. Okay, um, um, I'm still not comfortable per se with the word vulnerability as a weakness or synonymous with weakness. But I think you can be vulnerable without being weak. I think you can be vulnerable.
Hmm.
I think you can be um, transparent. I like better, than the word vulnerable because vulnerable suggests there is a weakness. And the clip, I think she kind of suggested that, or someone did afterwards. But just to reiterate that, Pastor Sheila, I think you were so on point. I don't really have any conflicting views, and I just learned a lot from the platform tonight. Thank
I appreciate you, sir. I
well,
appreciate you.
awesome, awesome, awesome. We thank you for sharing that information. And like we said, this is why we do it. And we always thank Mike and Pastor Chris. They get up here and they share, and it takes a lot for a man to come up here and share and be transparent and vulnerable, whatever you want to call it. And for anybody, it's not hard to tell you, it's not easy to tell your story. Again, because there's shame. And we don't want people to look at us, oh, she went through this, oh, he went through that. But again, to the point I made, once you tell your story, guess what? You just strip shame of its power over you. So I think it would be fitting for us to, go around, say our one word, and have Pastor Sheila close us out with some more profound words, and we can just go from there. So I will say one word. One word that I would share, and what I've learned from this is the beauty of an open platform and communication. That's more than one word, but y'all know what I mean. Just allowing, each and every one of us to be in that space so we can share. It's not that I can't learn from Mike because he's a man. It's not that I can't learn from Chris because he's a man. That's why we're here. So we're learning things as men and women from one another. Pastor Chris, you want to go?
Sure. My one word is redemption. And drop the mic.
Nice. Mike?
I have 3. Sharing is caring.
Sharon is caring. That's good. Sharon is caring. Elaine?
Well, I'm going to have 2, which is, well, actually 3, I guess. Vulnerability is strength.
And drum roll, Pastor Sheila,
Well,
say what you need to say and close us out and take us home, not with the Shondo, but the Pastor Chris said the Sheila. And let the glory fall. Yes.
Well, first, let me say that I really, really enjoy being here on the platform. This type of conversation is really, really close to my heart. I think because I have overcome so many things from being a young girl and to the age I am now, and the wisdom that I have and that I've gotten through. So I want to share that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that will stop you from becoming who you are. No one has the right to cause shame. No one has the right to judge. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. Life is going to continue to happen. Life is going to continue to life. The main thing to do is to get up and command your day. Speak to your day when you wake up, because as you rise, there's so many other elements trying to turn your day around before you even put your feet down. So there's a matter of being responsible for yourself and speaking to yourself and not allowing people to come into your space and violate you and come in with what they want to do and say and label you for a lack of who they are, right? So my hope is that you realize that when nothing changes, nothing changes. It sounds simple, but know that when you change, everything around you will change. It may change for the better, it may not, but when you change, people lose control. People lose control off of you. They'll get all in a frenzy because they don't have that same grip on you. But you must be the change for yourself. Know that when nothing changes, and always remember that you were born to be a winner. I don't care where you started from. I don't care what your root system speaks. Take control of your life. Take control, allow you to just grow and move past, turn the tape off and turn the voices off that don't speak. People must celebrate you instead of tolerating you. And I just pray that tonight helped you, it blessed you, it allowed you to just to give yourself grace, for the hiccups or whatever is going on with you. Give yourself grace. And I just hope to see you again. I know it's it's the Sheila Ingram Bravo with Sheila Network, but I believe it's our network for us to come to this place and to share and to be vulnerable. And I do believe, as Mike says, vulnerable doesn't necessarily mean weak. That means I can be open and vulnerable to the light, vulnerable to the stars, beholding the beauty of the beauty of the Lord when we look out every morning. So I thank you so much to Mondays Beyond the Mic, Dr. Elaine, and Coach Pache Felton. This has been an incredible night. I know next week you have the whole lineup for the month. It's powerful. So go forth and keep healing, keep loving, keep growing. And that's what I'll say. Ciao.
Child, don't leave yet. I have one more thing I want you to say. Well, I want you to drop your link because anybody that needs a tap test, I promise y'all it'll do you good to learn yourself. It
Okay.
will do you well. So drop your information down there. And then once again, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you
Okay, I
to
can
our
do this.
faithfuls, to everybody that's joined in.
I'll do this
And
little 2-second
okay.
commercial
Just
and
so
then I'll drop the link. That was more than a link, but it's nowutalking.com. All right. Nowutalking.com or 914, no, 917-325-0292. Okay. Thank you.
Thank
thank
you
you
all.
again.
I
Good
appreciate
night,
y'all.
good night, and good night.
Be blessed.